Hi there, you currently find me behind the wheel of the 2019 Kia Picanto GT, and I'm not making an overstatement when I say that this is one of the most fun cars I have driven in rather a long time. A big part of that starts off with the fact that the Picanto looks fun. Now, it's so small that it makes a Polo look like a Touareg, but there's nothing wrong with that because I think it looks really cute and great, and this GT version especially, with all of its sporty additions, I just think it's a really great looking little car. I love the front bumper that's all angry, I like the side skirts, I like the twin exhausts. It's just really nicely done the way they've turned this into a sportier version of a Picanto. They've done a great job of it. And of course, a small car being fun, well, that's a big part of it, I think, because cars like the Polo, since I mentioned it, I find them a little bit too serious these days, whereas this, it's not a car that takes itself seriously. It's like it goes around wearing a clown nose even though it isn't Red Nose Day. I like the interior as well. It's a little bit cheap in some areas. I mean, you know, the dashboard and the door cards are a bit scratchy and plasticky, but you've got to keep in mind that this thing, as the GT, starts at just $17,990, which is not a lot of money, so I'm happy to forgive them for cutting some corners in those areas. And anyway, all the things that you touch on a regular basis all feel really nice anyway. The steering wheel's great, the seats are leather and they feel really nice. You get red leather bolstering on the front ones, and there's red contrast stitching everywhere. The steering wheel's got it, the shift boot's got it, the armrests have it. It's really cool and funky that they've put a few little touches like that to help lift the interior overall without obviously going crazy money-wise and making this thing not a particularly budget-friendly car anymore. It's got lots of features in here too, like there's this lever down here. You can change gears with it. That's good. And there's a dial. There's this dial here. It tells you how fast you're going. I can see that coming in very useful. Very useful indeed. There's even this stalk next to the steering wheel here. And if you want to alert other drivers of which direction you're going, you can use that to tell them. BMW doesn't come with those. Now obviously I am making a joke at the expense of the Picanto and BMW drivers everywhere. It's got all the stuff that you need, this car, but nothing more. You do get an infotainment system with Apple CarPlay, there's a little trip computer in here, nothing too advanced, it doesn't have a digital speedo or anything. It does have some nice convenience items like automatic headlights, but otherwise it is fairly basic. But again, it's under 18 grand, this thing, so can you really fault it too much given the price point? And besides, most of the money that Kia has thrown at the Picanto in making this GT variant goes where it really counts, and that is in how it drives. And my word, does this thing drive really well. Now, the Picanto may only come with a 1 litre 3-cylinder engine in this GT form, which is smaller than the standard engine, which is a 1 1/4 litre 4-cylinder. But unlike that, this one is turbocharged, and that makes a world of difference. You got to consider as well the fact that even though it's a tiny engine, there is the fact that this car weighs about as much as a feather cushion, so it doesn't really need all that much power to get going. Now, there's only one gearbox option available. That's a 5-speed manual, and while I know that will turn some buyers away, I'm totally okay with it. Given the sort of car that it is, and especially given the fact that it's such a small engine, a manual really helps you wring the power out. And especially in what is just a shrunken hot hatch, I honestly believe a manual is really the only way to go. So even if there was an automatic, I'd probably tell you to get the manual anyway, especially especially given the fact that the only automatic currently available in the Picanto is a 4-speed torque converter. Not great. I have driven this engine in the Rio GT. There'll be a link below somewhere to our review on the website about that one. That comes with a 7-speed dual clutch, and while it's pretty good, I find that actually having the taller ratios of this, it helps you wring the engine out a bit more. The DCT is a little bit eager to upshift in its quest for efficiency, but even then, this is far more fuel efficient than that car anyway. I'm seeing about 6.5 litres per 100 right now, and I have been absolutely beating it up. So, yeah, economy-wise, it's great. It's still got that city car thing, you know, but it's the suspension and the handling that impresses most with the Picanto. It's not the most comfortable ride in the world. It's certainly not uncomfortable, I'll say that, but it's definitely quite firm. We're on a pretty smooth bit of road right now, but gets bumpy here, and you can feel it and you can hear it. There's not a whole lot of sound deadening in here, so I apologise about it sounding a little bit echoey. It's not the quietest ride, and it's not the smoothest ride. It's certainly not a baby Rolls Royce, but did you really expect it to be? It's a hot hatch. And besides, it's still fairly comfortable for what it is. I actually have no problems with the way that it rides. If you're used to driving a car that's lowered, not on coilovers, just on normal springs and shocks, which my own personal car is lowered on springs and shocks, you'll know what I mean when I say that it rides like that. It's a little bit firm, but you don't really mind or notice all that much. And besides, who cares about ride quality when it's this much fun through the bends? It is so flat and it darts into corners so joyously. It's just a barrel of fun. It is one of the most fun cars I've driven in a long time. I have said that already, but I'm going to reiterate that point because it's just so raw. You know, a manual gearbox, turbo engine, lightweight, simple. It's like if Lotus made a hatchback. Colin Chapman, simplify and add lightness. Well, those principles Kia has definitely adhered to in making this thing. It just turns so nicely. There's no roll at all, not a hint of it, despite the fact that it is proportionally quite tall compared to the rest of its dimensions. You just don't get any of it. And the steering's great too. Nice and tight little rack, turns in confidently, and there's not a whole lot of tyre either. They're only 195 wide, but it's plenty for something with this much power and this smaller weight and this tinier chassis overall. It just holds on so well. And it works with the camber of corners brilliantly. It's definitely worthy of that GT badge. There's no question or shadow of a doubt about it. I like the gearbox as well, this 5-speed manual. Yes, it might be a gear short these days, but I've never once gone for 6th gear expecting it to be there. I think the spacing of the ratios is perfectly fine. I like the feeling of the shifter. It's not the tightest thing in the world, but there's a little bit of play to it, but it's totally fine. The clutch pedal as well is really nicely weighted. It's not too heavy, easy to get a feel for. It's great around town as well, I'll say that. If you're worried about how it goes in town, I know a lot of people don't really buy manuals for driving in cities these days, or at least they don't in Australia. Europe's a different story. But here, most people don't really want a manual, but with this, I wouldn't be too worried. I've done plenty of city driving in it, and I've not had any complaints. It's just a brilliantly put together little car. There's not a whole lot that I don't really like about it. Yeah, there's a couple of things that are missing on the interior. And yes, it's not the most powerful thing. I like the noise that it makes, the little 3-cylinder engine, but it's definitely not a muscle car or anything like that. But overall, I mean, look, $17,990. Name me one car that offers better value for the money. Go on. See, you can't, because this is just one of the best value for money performance car buys out there right now. It might not be the fastest performance car out there, it might in fact be the slowest performance car out there, but you know that whole thing about driving a slow car fast? Yeah, that's just really fun. And just overall, this whole car is so fun. It's like a little puppy that's always got the zoomies. Bet if you threw a ball across your yard, it'd probably go and chase after it. Great car. Great car. Worth checking out if you like this sort of thing. If you like little hot hatches, you like manual gearboxes, you want something that's just dead simple to drive, you can do a lot worse than this. I'll see you next time.